At 3:13 a.m., Daniel Briggs pressed his ear to the living room wall and asked in a shaky whisper, "Who's there?" The house was quiet. His phone recorder sat on the coffee table, red light blinking. He heard the faint hum of the refrigerator and the soft tick of the floor vent. He waited, breath held. The wall answered. It wasn't an echo. It came a half-second late and in a voice almost like his, but not quite. "Who's there?" Daniel's spine went cold. He swallowed. "Say, something only you would know." From inside the wall, the reply came back, thinner and close like words pressed through drywall. "Say, something only you would know." He took a step back. His recording app kept blinking. The floor felt like it moved under his socks, just a little. The wall breathed a long, dry breath and said one more thing, this time not copying him, not a mirror at all. It said clear and quiet, "Daniel." The air turned sharp. His phone screen dimmed. The red light on the recorder flickered, then steadied. Daniel reached for the lamp. Before he could touch it, the whisper from the wall rose like someone leaning closer, and it finished his name in a way no echo could. "Daniel, I hear you." The lamp went out. He stood in the dark, his hand hanging in the air, his heart pounding so loud he could hear it in his teeth. And then, one new sound. Something small sliding inside the wall, like a fingertip finding a seam. The baseboard cracked. Now the beginning. Daniel had moved into the little blue house on Pine Ridge Road 2 weeks earlier. He was 32, a middle school music teacher, and the kind of person who labeled boxes and rolled his chords with ties. He liked quiet. He liked simple. He liked knowing what sound came from where. The first night, a soft knock woke him at 3:13 a.m. Just one, not the door, not the window. He sat up and listened. Nothing. The second night, it W. At first, nothing. He leaned forward, hands on his knees. The air felt cool in a new way, like someone had opened a window he couldn't see. He cleared his throat and said softly, "Testing." The word hung in the room and went still. Half a beat later, a second testing came back from the wall. Not loud, not far. Dead center in the drywall, right where his eyes landed. He froze. Then he tried again. "Hello? Hello?" The wall answered, delayed and thin. "Is this an echo?" he asked. "Is this an echo?" The wall answered, catching on the word echo like it didn't like the shape of it. His laugh came out wrong. "Okay, very funny," he said, because saying that made him feel bigger. But his back prickled. He moved closer, very close, until his breath made a small fog on the paint. "What are you?" The wall paused. The silence deepened, like a pool going dark as a cloud crosses the sun. He felt somehow that the thing inside the wall was thinking, deciding. The answer that returned was not a copy. "Here." Daniel stepped back fast enough to bump the coffee table. The recorder wobbled and the phone slid an inch. He stared at the smooth, painted surface. It stared back by being plain. Now the lows came, small and strange, like a string of tiny knots on a rope. On Sunday morning, the living room clock read 3:13 for 3 seconds at lunchtime before jumping to 12:47. That night, the air vent whispered when the heat kicked on, not a hiss of air, but a syllable that sounded like Dan. On Tuesday, the drywall near the outlet felt cool, even while the room was warm. He pressed his palm to it. The cool pulsed against his skin. Once, twice, like a heartbeat. He talked to the house, which is something people do when they live alone. "I'm not scared," he told it, which was a lie he liked hearing. "I just want to know what you are." The house did not answer in words. It answered in, "Who's there? Who's there?" The wall returned, same words. But this time the timing was wrong. It didn't chase his sound. It stepped on it, like someone trying to talk over him. He moved closer. "Say my name." Silence. He could hear the night animals outside, the tiny clicks and leaves. He could hear a truck on the highway, far and low. He could hear his own skin scrape his sleeve as he lifted his hand. Then, almost kindly, like a whisper through a pillow, "Daniel." He jerked back. "Don't do that," he said, and hated the way it sounded like a plea. "Don't do that," the wall echoed, but the tone was off, playful, curious, as if tasting the shape of his fear. Enough, he thought. He reached for the lamp to flood the room with something normal. His fingers brushed the switch. The lamp went out on its own. The phone screen dimmed to black. The red dot on the recorder flickered twice, then held steady. The air cooled, and with the cooling came that new small sound in the baseboard. A slide, then a tiny crack. He looked down. A hairline split ran along the paint where the wall met the floor, as if the house had smiled and the skin had torn a little. He backed away until the back of his legs touched the couch. "I'm calling someone," he said to the room, to the recorder, to the strange cool place in the wall. I'm not doing this alone. Alone, the wall repeated, very soft. Then, as if making a promise, not alone, the clock on the stove in the kitchen clicked. He looked. The blue numbers read 3:13 even though he knew it was later. The furnace hummed on and then hummed off like it had changed its mind. He lifted his phone. The battery was full, but the screen ignored him. He pressed the side button 3 times. Nothing. He set it back down so hard the case popped at one corner. Okay, he said, because a word is a lifeline when the world tilts. Okay. He stepped toward the wall, slow, like a diver testing the water with a toe. He pressed his palm flat. The paint was cold enough to sting. He wanted to say, be brave. What came out was, please stop. The wall did not repeat that. It breathed in. He could feel the sudden cool, and then whispered one new sentence closer than before, like a mouth behind thin paper. Let me show you. The baseboard crack widened with a dry pop. The paint lifted. A thin dark line opened, no wider than a pencil, but long, long as the couch. Cold air slid out and touched his ankles. A shape like a fingertip pressed from the other side, testing the seam. It withdrew. It pressed again, higher. Daniel stumbled back, bumping the coffee table so both recorders shook. The wall whispered his name once more, sweet as a lullaby and wrong in every other way. Daniel. Then something inside found the seam a third time and pushed, and the line in the baseboard tore up the wall with a sound like paper ripped slow. The lamp flared back to life, the bulb buzzing white-hot. And from inside the wall, something began to slide toward the light. The thing inside the wall slid closer, slow and dry, like a long envelope being pulled open. Daniel couldn't make his feet move. The lamp buzzed hot. The recorder's red light blinked steady, and the thin dark seam crept upward, peeling paint with a tiny crackle. The voice came again, soft, careful, almost kind. Let me show you. He shook his head so hard his glasses slipped. No, stop, please stop. The wall did not repeat that. It breathed in, cool and thin, and the seam paused. For a second the house went very still, like it was listening to him think. He took that second and used it. He grabbed his phone, pressed the side button. Nothing. He snatched the old handheld recorder, thumbed the switch to off, then on. The red dot died and came back. He aimed its tiny microphone at the crack. Who are you? He asked, voice shaking. The answer came a half beat later, from inside. Who are you? Don't copy me, he said. This time the wall tried the words out of order, like it was flipping cards to see which fit. Copy. Don't me. Daniel felt something like a laugh run through him, and then fall apart before it could be real. Okay. Listen, I'm going to call, the wall said, but not copying. This voice sounded lower, like someone else had leaned close behind the first whisper. He backed toward the doorway. The lamp's light made a sharp triangle on the floor. The rest of the room felt too dark. He grabbed his keys from the bowl by the door. They jingled loud in his hand, a normal sound. He liked it. He stepped into the hall and headed for the porch. The front lock turned before he touched it. Click. Slow, smooth. The deadbolt slid back like a hand knew it by heart. Daniel froze, one foot on the mat. No, he said, small. No. Daniel, the wall said from the living room, but now the voice came from two places at once. The thin seam, and somehow the hollow space over the door, as if the house had a throat, and it ran all the way around him. He staggered back to the couch, heart thumping so loud he could feel it in his gums. He did the only simple thing his brain could make. He sat. He placed the recorder on his knee and held it with both hands like it was a warm cup. He breathed in fours the way he told his students to do before a concert. In, 2, 3, 4. Out, 2, 3, 4. The house settled. The seam did not move. The lamp's buzz softened. In the low, Daniel tried to think like a teacher making a plan. First, get proof. Second, get help. Third, sleep in bright daylight at someone else's place. He turned the handheld recorder toward his face. My name is Daniel Briggs, he said, voice steadier. It's 3-something a.m. I live alone. I'm in the living room. There's a split in the baseboard that wasn't there before. Something is inside the wall. It repeats, but not always. Sometimes it answers. Half a beat later, the wall said, sometimes it answers. like a child reading with a finger under each word. "Not funny," Daniel said, and heard his voice swing between brave and scared. "If you can answer, say something new." Silence. Then a soft, almost proud, "new." His shoulders sagged. "Okay, fine. You can talk." "Talk," the wall agreed. New low things piled up like small stones. The kitchen clock hummed and then flashed 3:13 again. The hall nightlight flicked on, off, on. Somewhere above, in the ceiling, there was a tiny rolling sound, as if a marble had moved by itself and come to rest. Daniel told himself mice couldn't roll marbles. He told himself he didn't own marbles. He took a careful step closer to the wall. The seam rose to just below the outlet now, a thin black zipper. The paint around it had bubbled like old soup skin. He put his palm near it, not on it. The air that leaked out was cooler than the room and smelled faintly like dust and pennies. "Let me show you," the voice said again, softer, like a secret between friends. "Please," it added. And that word didn't sound like a copy. It sounded learned. "Show me what?" Daniel asked. He didn't mean to ask, but questions fell out of him the way water spills when you tilt a cup. The wall did not answer. Instead, something slid behind the surface like a shadow passing a thin curtain. The lamp's light bent a little, as if the air had a wrinkle in it. The tiny buzz from the bulb rose and fell, like the lamp was nervous too. Daniel's phone woke up by itself. The screen lit and the recorder app opened. The little waveform line moved, even though he hadn't spoken. Text crept across the screen, letters typing on their own, sestikis. Low at first, then quicker,